welcome to another episode of Positive Parenting with Astrology. I'm your host and resident Gemini, Maria Rieger, and today we're talking about the number one flaw of the Gemini parent, the worst trait, if you will, of the Gemini parent. We are still in Gemini season, so we're talking about Gemini parents. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to my channel to get your free, regular Positive Parenting with Astrology content. You can sign up for my mailing list. The link is in the video description below to get more free content, your current planetary transits, and other offers. You can also get a free sample of my book, Your Gemini Child, by clicking the link in the description below. That book is available on all major retailers in print, in ebook. It is also an audiobook on Audible, and the link for the audiobook is in the video description below. So let's get started. Okay, do you know what the biggest flaw of the Gemini parent is? I'm not saying Gemini parents only have one flaw, but the biggest flaw, the worst trait of the Gemini parent is the one that has the most probability of negatively affecting your relationship with your child. That's what we're talking about today. First, we're going to go over briefly the nature of Gemini energy. Gemini is mutable air. Air covers a lot of ground, but kind of superficially. So Gemini energy has the potential to cover many subjects, but not always in depth. Mutable means it waffles between cardinal and fixed energy. Sometimes it exhibits more of a fixed nature, more of a stable nature. A lot of times it exhibits more cardinal energy, meaning it's intent on moving forward, progressing, advancing, not being still. And with mutable air, that quality of, restlessness, not being able to be still mentally and physically is quite prevalent with Gemini energy. Now, Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury. So every planet, every zodiac sign has a negative archetype and a positive archetype, right? So Mercury's negative archetype is like the trickster, the one who's playing mind games with you, the one who's speaking, out from both sides of their mouth, right? Who says something they don't mean, right? Who are inconsistent in their speech. And this is the trait we're going to talk about today. Not that Gemini parents intentionally want to trick kids or intentionally want to gaslight, but that changeable nature leads Gemini parents, sometimes causes Gemini parents to be very inconsistent when interacting with their kids and to parent inconsistently. So Gemini people get a bad rap much of the time. The common stereotypes include, well, we're liars, we don't say what we mean, or we'll just say whatever the other person wants to hear, we're constantly changing our minds, we're not speaking our truths, things like this. So here's what happens. In my last video on Gemini parents, on the best traits of the Gemini parent, I quoted relationship astrologer Stephen Arroyo, and I'm going to quote him here today again. He says that Gemini energy involves the immediate perception and verbalization of all connections. Here's what happens, okay? Gemini people, our minds are constantly working. We are constantly intaking data, processing, evaluating data, and reaching conclusions. This happens constantly. It is a very difficult process to interrupt and stop, okay? Which is one reason why I'm always preaching that teaching mindfulness, meditative practices to Gemini kids is really beneficial. It's really hard for us to turn our minds off. So what happens is we take in data, we make decisions and conclusions based on the data we have today, and we make statements, which that is our truth today. That is true for us today. And tomorrow or next week or next month, we are making other decisions based on the data we have collected and processed and analyzed since the first decision. We're consistently taking in additional data, processing additional data and analyzing it and reaching other conclusions. And we're making a different statement or a different conclusion based on the data. So we can say a statement that is our truth today. And we can say a statement tomorrow or next week or next month that is maybe contradictory, but it is also our truth because based on the new information, that is also our truth. It is not that we're deliberately lying, although that possibility could very well be deliberate or intentional deception. It's not that we're necessarily deliberately lying. It's that the conclusion we've reached is different because we've collected more information. Geminis are also prone to overthinking. This is probably easy to see why. So that's what's going on here. It's not that as a Gemini parent you are intentionally trying to gaslight or deceive your child. It's that you're rethinking things and taking in more data and reaching different conclusions. This can cause Gemini parents to be very inconsistent with discipline and with other things. And kids of Gemini parents will instinctively figure out that their parents can change their minds. So one of the things they do is they'll like consistently ask their parents the same question. Well, can I do this? Well, you said no yesterday, or you said no an hour ago or 5 minutes ago, but maybe you're going to change your mind because I know you're always changing your mind. So that happens. Okay, that's not necessarily a negative thing, but it is a dynamic that frequently occurs with a Gemini parent. So part of the Gemini experience is learning from natural consequences. When the Gemini individual, the parent in this case, is indecisive, can't make up their mind, or changes their mind drastically or quickly, there may be some natural consequences from that, and the Gemini person is forced to deal with the natural consequences. That could be that one of the natural consequences is that the other person doesn't always believe you when you're speaking because you change your mind so frequently or are frequently inconsistent. So that is something that the Gemini individual has to deal with and learn from, right? It's learning the natural consequences of being indecisive and being inconsistent. Now, as a parent, and as the parent, you're responsible for the relationship with your child. There are some things you can do to kind of mitigate this trait of being inconsistent. One is, as a parent, you can decide those issues that are those no bargain issues, those issues that you will not negotiate about. No, you may not play X video game because it's too graphic. Or no, you may not see R-rated movies yet because you are too young. That is a blanket statement. We are not negotiating on that. So, it is okay to be inconsistent and change your mind once in a while. Just make sure you have these core things that are no bargain issues for you that you will not think twice about, you will not negotiate about with the kids. And it can be a short list, but hold fast to those. And those things are usually around safety, both safety about what your kid is exposed to as far as movies and images, and physical safety. Maybe you have a rule that you will not allow your child to have sleepovers. That's fair. I don't see anything wrong with that rule. That may be a rule that you decide as a parent that works for you guys, and that's fine. And that's just what you're going to have to do with your kids. And if they want to spend time with their friends, they can spend time with their friends in other ways, but no sleepovers or whatever. But you decide, for you specifically and for your family, what those no bargain issues are, and hold fast to those. Okay, those are non-negotiable. Now, everything else, you can accept that it is okay to change your mind about things. It is okay to negotiate. I personally do not see a problem with a parent negotiating with the child. There are parents that don't believe, just like we don't negotiate with terrorists, we don't negotiate with kids, we don't negotiate with toddlers. That's not how I parent. Of course, I'm a Gemini. Negotiating is like second nature to me. My son is a Gemini moon. Negotiating is second nature to him. So negotiating is a big part of our relationship. And teaching a child to negotiate, you are teaching them to work with the other person, listen to the other person's wants and needs, and reach a mutually beneficial conclusion. Okay? And, I could give a lot of advice, so we could do a lot of different videos on negotiating, specifically on that topic with your kids. I mean, we will. So, but you can ask them, like, what would need to happen for you to be okay with this, or what's wrong with this that you don't want to do this. But bottom line here, without going into too much detail, is that I don't see a problem negotiating certain things with kids. Not those no bargain issues we talked about earlier, but other things. You're encouraging your kid to have this back and forth give and take exchange with you. You're also discouraging them from, learning about bullying. You don't want to bully your kid, and you don't want to teach them to be a bully. You don't want to teach them to be authoritarian with other people. You don't want to teach them to just run roughshod over other people's wants, needs, and desires, right? So when you model the negotiating for them, you're modeling a dialogue, and you're also modeling this exchange of let's reach this mutually beneficial conclusion. Now, that's probably going to be more common as kids get older, adolescents and teens, and they have increased age-appropriate independence and an increased say in what happens to them. So it's quite common to be negotiating with adolescents and teens. And I don't see any problem with that as long as everybody's respectful and there's a give and take and you're letting each party have their say. Now, if you are like me and you're sometimes an inconsistent parent and you change your mind, your kids pick up on that. And your kids may, after you respond to something, may pester you about it. And this is annoying. This is especially annoying to air sign parents, especially annoying to Gemini parents, because we live on our nerves and this constant pestering is very triggering for us. It's very annoying for us. We want it to stop. So sometimes we're just like, whatever, you can do whatever as long as you stop pestering me. But then the kid learns all I need to do is pester my parents and they'll give in to what I want, right? Okay. Well, there's a trick that I use sometimes that's been helpful. When you answer something and you don't have any intention of changing your mind at that moment, or you don't have any intention of negotiating on this, and your kid is pestering you again, you can say, hey, I answered that question already. Asked and answered. I already answered that question. We're not talking about this anymore. Let's talk about something else. Or is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Shut it down immediately. If your child keeps pestering you, feel free to go to another room. Oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Bye. And go to the bathroom for 15 minutes, whatever. But, these are things you can do when, you don't want to be pestered, and also you feel yourself start to be very triggered by the pestering. And I want to bring up here that can be a trauma trigger, okay? It is for me, because the household in which I grew up, the parent figure would basically pester me about stuff until I did what the parent wanted, right? Even as a teenager. They would pester me and just be relentless verbally about do this, until I finally was like, this is too much pressure. I'll just do whatever you want so you stop bothering me. So this is a big trauma trigger for me when I'm being pestered by my kid, and it happens less because my kid's older now, but when my kid was younger, it was a huge trigger for me. Like I would be like, whatever, just leave me alone. Stop pestering me. Stop asking me. Stop being relentless, okay? I'm overstimulated. That was a big thing. Overstimulated, and now I'm having a hard time dealing with the overstimulation. So that's okay. If you're triggered, it's okay. So this is a good way of dealing with the trigger. Hey, I already answered that question. We're not discussing this anymore. Okay? I said I already answered that question. Is there anything else you would like to talk about at this time? That subject is closed. Okay, I'm going to go for a walk and leave and go for a walk. And if they're little, you can't leave them alone. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Oh, I'm going to listen to this podcast and put your headphones on. This is something you can do kind of to deal with that. If you are like me and you feel that pressure starting to build and you're starting to feel very triggered by the constant, pestering, then you can do that. And as the kids get older, they'll hopefully understand that message and then change their behavior, okay? But it is a risk if you are an inconsistent parent, and if you are, it's not a big deal. There is that risk that the kid realizes that and pesters you because they know that, oh, mom or dad changes their mind, so I'm going to keep relentlessly pestering them, right? And if you have a kid who has strong Scorpio energy like I do, that that there's a strong probability that dynamic will happen. So let me know in the comments below if this is an issue for you. If you are a Gemini parent or an air sign parent or a parent with strong Gemini energy in your chart, maybe a Gemini moon, Gemini rising, if you have this issue with being inconsistent, or if you state some hard and fast rules and then the next day you rethink the rules, you think, well, maybe I was a little bit too strict. I don't really see the point of being that strict. It's okay. If you're inconsistent, it's okay. As long as you are recognizing that and working with that, you're halfway there, okay? And all kids want stability in the household, and all kids like to know what's coming next. So you want to be as consistent a parent as you can. On the other hand, it's, when you change your mind, you're also showing the kids that it is okay to change your mind. It is okay to be flexible, and you don't want to be like, I'm going to make this decision and I feel like I have to stand by this decision because it's what I said 2 days ago, even if you've come to the conclusion that maybe you should be changing your mind. So my point is, this isn't necessarily a flaw. It can be, but it's also a good characteristic of the Gemini parent because the other side of this coin is flexibility, right? And the adapting to different circumstances, maybe different data, and that's also a good thing. So I hope this information has been useful to you. If you would like more information on parenting Gemini children, I have a whole playlist and I have a book on Gemini kids. The link to that will be in the video description below. And thank you for your attention. I will be back soon.